these process areas of these best practices and guidelines against specific functional groups within your organization. For instance, let's take requirements development and management. You'll go to your team, whatever functional group that may be, who's responsible for requirements development, the management of these requirements. So say you have a central group of business analysts, and their responsibility is to constantly align themselves to the business functional groups, understand the processes, understand where changes have to be made to specific or certain information systems, and what would the changes be to the underlying information technology. So you're constantly benchmarking your organizations against these process areas. It may be one process area, or based upon your organization, you may have, like, for instance, quality engineering and quality assurance in one functional group. So therefore, you would go to verify, which is quality engineering, best practices, and you would go to validation, which is quality assurance. There's a distinction between the two. So when you look at this was a document that I put together to help explain this to customers who come to Carnegie Mellon, the Software Engineering Institute. There's member companies, and to work with them. And as you could see, I get beyond the description of the goals and the best practices, but I also provide examples of artifacts. And exactly, this is what Nick, as the assessor, will be considering when I assess this area of requirements management. So if I, one last thing. So there's a bunch of them. Measurements, project quality, or management, supplier management, risk management. This is at the org level for focus, and so on. Corrective actions, which is a whole process area unto itself now. But if I go to risk management, I don't mean to go off tangent, but I developed this risk management model to do calculations of the impact of current technical risk. It's only technical risk, as well as potential technical risk. So we have the probability of the risk event occurring. So what's the impact? Let me go back. And as you could, here's the equation. So we have workday loss, total loss in workdays, workday loss, calculated workday loss, and so on. So we can calculate the dollars ranging from the impact, the risk planning activity, acting upon this risk with a mitigation, and of course our constant auditing and assessment to make sure that this technical risk has been mitigated immensely from a cost and schedule perspective, and or it's been eliminated. And we do the same thing for potential technical risk. In this case, that would be more or less more from a cost avoidance perspective. So let me just go here. So is that helpful? I provided that as a means to support, from more of a granular level, the maturity assessment framework that came out of models I built for Carnegie Mellon, that the students then built with my assistance, the one that you guys will be using. Okay, so let me go back to this, okay? So when you do perform the enterprise architecture maturity assessment model. So when you perform this assessment specific to their maturity for their processes across business, IS, IT, even though I provide you an explanation, a breakdown, what you will have to do is document and formulate questions. So with the understanding of what organization, what specific part of whatever that organization is, or if it's third-party research, again, the organization, what part of this organization, with a good understanding, then you need to formulate specific questions, open-ended questions. So if you're falling back on doing third-party research, you still should formulate these questions, and your research should answer these questions to some level of granularity. So the only thing you need to do is, again, I provided the model, provided a lower level understanding of the maturity levels, and then you need to develop the open-ended questions so you could examine the so you could have a good understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of that organization or that subset. The term weaknesses, I shouldn't use that term. We eliminated that at Carnegie Mellon. Even in the software CMM last release in the mid-90s, before we were working on the CMMI, we refer to weaknesses as opportunities for improvement. So we have more of a politically correct term. So we're not beating up, if we're working with a real organization or some subset, we're not basically trying to provide to them in an indirect way. By the way, this is some I don't want to say hostility, but you're trying to prevent conflict. So that's why you say opportunities for improvement. So that's the only thing you have to do to this. So you create a third tab, call it your questions, have two columns that would be your strengths and opportunities for improvement, have another column right after your questions, which would be the responses, and if it's third party or research, that would be the answer to those questions, and then start to look at the strengths and strengths and opportunities for improvement along the lines of the intent of this model. So at the end of it, I could say that my organization or subset that I looked at is really a level 3. That's their starting point. So does that make sense to everyone for Project 2? Does that help with the explanation of that maturity assessment model? And just the one last slide that we have to do is actually conduct an assessment. But if it's third-party research, you are still conducting an assessment, but it's not, say, second-party or first-party interaction. So why don't we go back to Project 2? Let me call up the Word template. Okay. I put together standard templates before there were no templates, and I thought it would be useful to have a standard template that provided specific sections that were pertinent, where then the student could just basically focus on the subject matter, the content, and then plop their specific content subject matter in whatever section or subsection. So basically, for each section, I've sort of annotated it. So project background information. So basically, in this case, is you're looking at a organization directly or subset, or you're doing third-party research, this should provide to me a background of that organization or that subset, either third party or second or first party. So a background understanding as a set of project goals that you're trying to achieve and the purpose of this project. So it's background information to level set me. The project goals for this particular project is to what? Discern through research and analysis the maturity level of this organization or subset, or if it's third party, it's still the same thing. And then the purpose of this project, you could also throw scope in if you want, is what? To look at the maturity level, where they are, and to use a maturity assessment framework as the benchmark to rate this organization or subset. And then the second section is, what is a maturity model? How is a maturity model utilized, okay? Cite some specific enterprise architecture examples and address the points below. So basically, what I developed for you guys, what I developed for you guys in terms of maturity assessment model, you just have to reference that. You don't have to do a copy and paste, you just reference the model. It's already done for you. Of course, you need to answer these questions. What is an enterprise maturity framework? Standard definition. It's a framework of best practices and guidelines that provides me a benchmark that I could then assess my organization to see where we are against this framework. What is a modeling maturity framework? Okay. What are the differences and what's similar? So in this case, what is a modeling maturity framework? Let me be specific on that. As much as an enterprise architecture maturity framework, Zachman, Togaf, DUDAF, FIF, I could go on and on. A modeling maturity framework would be EPC, Event Process Chain. Even though it's a business modeling language, it is a framework. Remember last week, I showed the framework, which was what? HOBE, House of Business Engineering. If I wanted to change this and say, what is the modeling maturity framework, say for developing reusable web services, that can be a technical modeling framework based upon one or more key SOA industry patterns. SOA means services oriented architecture. So just to give you an example, and then this here is a brief description of the method or approach. Well, again, you're going to use the model that I provided and the explanations that provide you more granularity to that model, and you're going to use it as the means to assess the organization. So the model is already produced for you. You just need to talk to it again. Explain the modeling maturity assessment tool or approach. Again, you're talking right to the tool. What you may also bring in is the questions that you had to formulate so you could assess your organization against the maturity assessment model. Explain how you would implement your maturity assessment tool. Well, it would be implemented. If I look here, what principles should guide the implementation? The principles are the following. A, an organization needs to understand what their current state is. B, an organization needs to understand, and I'm talking in terms of lean, they need to understand what their future state at this point in time will be. Therefore, these two principles, so I myself as an organization can be competitive in the marketplace, these two principles are guiding me to understand current and what can be a future state. And this goes back to that level 5 where it's constant optimization. So explain the value. So a good portion of these sections are repetitive in terms of what they're asking for, but it's getting you to think. And of course, document a list of references. So if you have a live organization and you have access to their technical documents, business documents, so on and so forth, what their strategies are, well, these are points of references that you could cite, call out. And of course, if you have any appendices, also underneath the appendices, if you put together some sort of, just for the sake of it, I had students in the spring that put together some preliminary business process models to represent the overall business process architecture framework. Like, for instance, the organizational, showing the linkage to a governance body and so on. So, are there any questions? So, what do you think about Project 2? Project 2 is focused on how do I gauge, let me use simplistic terms, how do I gauge where this organization is specific to a proper enterprise architecture framework, mindset, and specific to business process, information systems, and information technologies. So that's the gist of Project 2. Is there any disagreement with how I summarized it?
No, Professor, I think it is a good exercise for us to have. My only thing is in our team, we three come from totally different backgrounds and different organizations, and we will end up, there is only one person knows better about their own organization, so we will end up doing it one person.
Yes, oh yes, absolutely. That's why we have teams. Last semester in the spring, it just happened to be that I had students, multiple students, say, like I had 2 students from Nationwide. I had 2 students from a federal civilian agency, 2 students from a manufacturing firm, 2 from UPS. And it just happened to be that this was the combinations, and they were working on actual projects in architecture. So it was very easy, but in our case, we don't have that, and that's fine. So I'll leave it up to the team to decide. You know, I think this is good for my organization. Maybe I should do a third-party research of an organization. So when you look at wait, sorry for jumping back. Let me go back to the agenda. Okay. I'm going to, before I go to review of my synopsis by topics, I would like to go back to modules. And again, everyone, thank you for your patience. Project 3 is where you're actually going out and doing research, third-party research of an organization based upon if they fall within these project categories. So like, for instance, we shall say, for instance, your team selected, let's look at a organization that is in service sector, could be retail, banking, whatever, okay, investment. And so I'm going to do research. So in this case, well, I provide for those 4 project categories a description and background information and a description. So I level set everyone in this course, I mean the teams rather, looking at what type of project category and then selecting an organization. I level set them with an understanding. So if they select discrete manufacturing compared to mass manufacturing, compared to consumables, chemical manufacturing, on and on and on, or retail, which is, or service sector, which is multiple types of industries, I level set them what it is. So then the project requirements, see, in this case, project, I selected discrete manufacturing. I have Lockheed Martin. I conducted my third-party research. And here I'm providing you an example that you could use as a template for your research paper. Document a set of well-defined business process improvements. I know based upon my third-party research, third-party now, Harvard Business Cases, Wall Street Journal, CNBC Financial News, other articles, authors of published books where they've done research into Department of Defense manufacturers. And so with this said, looking from the outside, supplier chain management, project management, governance and oversight, they seem to have a problem, particularly with earned value and technical risk management capabilities. Earned value is what a lot of federal and Department of Defense contractors use. It's very, very intricate because it's looking at cost and schedule indices. I could share a set of equations, but later on we'll post. So, and then based upon your research, translate them into a set of either EPC, event process chain, or BPMN models, business process modeling notation. So in this case, here is the Word template. So in this case, if you go back to project 2 and say you have to do third-party research, well, why not bring them into project 3, right? And why not? Well, you'll have to see where this organization lies into. Is it project category 1, 2, 3, or 4? So looking at the template, so the project category and specific organization. So discrete manufacturer, Lockheed Martin. Here's my research. I document business process improvement. So based upon my research, these are the business process improvements they need to make to supplier chain, to governance and oversight, technical risk management, which falls under governance and oversight, as well as cost and schedule indices. And then you would have a copy and paste of your business process models. And then document a list of references, appendices. So let me go to the template. So if I go here, see here, this was the research. So in section 2, most of this will go in section 2, the research of the organization. So in this case, product technology, multifunctional materials. So I'm doing lots of research, and I'm finding out, based upon these areas of research, in this case, applied nanostructured solutions, there's some specific process-related problems, issues and problems, recommendations, okay? And then I always like to say strategic movement, which means what? If I just recommend the following improvements to your processes, whether business, IS, or IT that make up your enterprise architecture, and I actually implement, but I never sustain a strategic monitoring, taking measures, looking at data from different views, hence metrics, where then I could continuously, nonstop, optimize, make improvements as my business changes. So this is what I mean by strategic movement. It's beyond developing and deploying the process improvements. So, so with all this, much of this will be populated into that template. Now, in this case, in this case, since we're talking manufacturing, well, it could even be the service sector, say financial. In this case, I'm using just SAP R3 as a benchmark for a framework. So let me click here. How many people have experience with ERP systems? Gary, do you have, let me just go down. Oh, okay, so Gary, so you have experience with ERP. What, SAP, JD Edwards, what type of ERP system, Gary? Ah, okay. Perfect. Okay. So if I look at my framework that I developed, I used to be senior member for the University Alliance or SAP studies when I was at RIT, but reporting from the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee. So this is a breakdown. I could have gone on with pages and pages of the breakdown because, as you know, Gary, with any ERP system, in this case SAP, you could go 12 levels deep for one area. Say just, for instance, financials, where then you're branching out into trade, tariffs, things of that, taxation. So here's several key examples: purchase to pay, order to cash, inventory, physical counts, and so on. And so I'm doing the relationships. Okay. So if I go down here, okay. Here's examples. In this case, Eris. So Lockheed Martin, they happen to use SAP. That's another reason why I chose SAP, but you could still use SAP as a benchmark even if the organization doesn't. So in this, here's the improvements to production and logistics. Production is a subset of logistics. There's three main modules in SAP: financial, logistics, and human capital management. So in this case, let's take the first one. I'm focusing on production lots by lot size. So here's the planning process. Remember, in business process modeling, if we're using EPC, event process chain, we have what? An event triggers an activity. Okay. And then this represents Boolean logic here. So if I go on, let's look at now the demand management process. Let's look at create a production order. Let's look at execution order. So basically, this all fits supplier chain management, which was a key issue for Lockheed Martin. So I provided examples to support my research, number one, and I've given you guys a bona fide template where you could look at the research for Lockheed Martin as well. This is how the content should be structured. The template is structured along those lines. So it's just going to be a matter of working with the template is my framework. And then the models that I gave you guys. So is this a good are these good examples from Project 3 to help you? Are they good examples? Okay, perfect. Again, I'm going to work with you guys on your teams. So the other last item are the synopsis. I mentioned that, well, the recordings, I still have to get the first one converted. So this is empty. So I have to get the one from last week and the one tonight converted. I have someone from IT support doing that, so we could keep them instead of after 2 weeks they're gone. But what I mean by the synopsis, the readings that you guys are assigned. I said this before a couple times. Last semester, what I did, which are the same readings, I would summarize the key points or the key takeaways, whatever terms you would like to use or nomenclature. But also, in several of these readings, they're not detailed, they're not granular enough, like you'll come across with Gartner in one of the readings. So I also add, where applicable, specific pertinent information to that topic by example, not just a bunch of academic words. And I also add further insights based upon my experience. Reason why I did these summaries by topic, I call them synopsis, is the fact that they're great to walk away from a course like this where you have a very concise set of knowledge that's been compacted. In some cases, I have links to external resources because they basically have a better insight. Not that I don't, but they have a better insight, more clarity, and so on. So if we go to week 3, Every week, I will make a point of reviewing. So if we go to week 3, okay, so this one is really referencing the subject matter. What do I mean by that? If you go to modules, and you go to systems, software, systems architectural design, systems software analysis modeling, instead of regurgitate, I just have notations to go back to those actual documents. So in this case, principles and techniques, common views and relationships. Let me go here to week 2. Oh, week 2 is the same thing, so week 1. Here we go. Okay. So understanding and modeling complex systems. That was the first topic. So as we could see, what is a complex system? These are my definitions. There's a link back to, this is a hot link. Yeah, it's a link back to the specific document in those modules. So if I go here, this is of SAP because I'm using it as a framework. Now here is specific examples. This is a use case model, financial controlling, logistics controlling. This is a information systems, but mainly information technology architecture model example, showing how orchestrated web services, orchestrated workflow objects, in this case, people, can work with the execution of business processes that you may have governed by your business rules engine. And then I add additional information. This is key. This is how many organizations are basically their IS, IT, and business side. As much as you have an enterprise architect, which oversees the information systems architecture and the underlying information architecture that supports these information systems, you have a business process architect, which is equal to the enterprise architect. And then here's the enterprise guiding principles as we speak of architecture along the lines of business process, information systems, and information technology. Let me just go to 4. So requirements capture. And then what's the foundation? In your readings, it addressed it, but not in a concise way, structured way. If I go here, number 5. Okay. So in this case, here we have Togaf. How many people are familiar with Togaf, which is an enterprise architecture framework? Okay, so Togaf, I explain information systems, standards, a readiness assessment, Note how I'm calling out other third-party, public or private, the public or private sectors. This is very key. Any systems architecture, either from an information systems view or an information technology view that supports the information systems, you should have reference models, a performance, a business reference model, service component, data information. So I get through this, and then the building blocks of any information system that has to support a set of business processes. Well, how would I use the ATAM assessment model so I could assess the relevancy of, say, my current SAP system that supports my entire operations, financial, logistics, HR, and so on. So I cite these and so on. And of course, we went over this. So I will stop here, but what do you guys think? Was this useful information? Okay. Okay, thank you. So if project teams 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, if they could go back and just either provide me the information in an email so I could update this, remember this file so I could update it. Please do that. And I will be in attendance in all your meetings. If I cannot, I will then send you an email just to send me a quick synopsis of your meeting minutes, only the key points and action items that are pending. So with that, I have no questions or information to present. So are there any comments, questions? You could, okay, you could schedule it, but not by a certain date. In other words, you create a conference in Canvas. You don't call out a specific date. So that's why you saw, like in mine, if I go back, like in mine, see, I put here September 8th, 2016. And I could create, I could have created the one for next week and the following week. So to answer your question, that's how you basically schedule it. And then real time, you start it when you're ready. So even if, for instance, say tonight, I did not start it, but even though read the 8th of September, but I decided, hey, let's start it tomorrow on Friday at 9/9. I could have done that. So yes, it's real time. Yes, you can create no time limit. I've done it. Yes, exactly, which is really beneficial because for people that have worked with WebEx or Cisco WebEx, and the other one is by Citrix, the go-to meeting, and like Oracle, we have Beehive and so on. You really can't do that. You must specify a specific time slot, and if you need additional time, you'll get an interruption in your conference, and you'll have to say yes, an additional 30 minutes or whatever, respond either verbally or respond to a pop-up window that they call up. They stay for 2 weeks, and that's why I'm working to get tonight's and last week's over to a permanent file. Okay, so If there's no questions or comments, other than, again, let me repeat, if you need anything, I'm here 7/24. So you could call me anytime between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. That includes Saturday and Sundays. And if you need any specific special meetings with me as a project team or individually outside of the project status meetings, please reach out to me. I'm here for you guys. And again, without sounding like I'm being repetitive, I would like to be as a silent but active member on your team. So that's, oh yes, okay. Okay, grades, okay. I had mentioned in our first session that I will send out at the end of September, or maybe third week in September, individual spreadsheets per student that will have columns that represent their assignments, discussions, assignments, and so on. And you will see your grades. Now, the reason why I'm not putting it directly into Canvas, because I'm giving you guys the opportunity to make changes based upon my comments back to you. So, like, for instance, if I gave you, say, a B, and there were comments I made, I want you to leverage those comments, make those improvements, have, communicate with me on your thoughts, whatever, because maybe I had missed the boat with my comments. But the bottom line is, I want this to be continuous improvement to your understanding of the subject matter, both knowledge and applied knowledge. It's not till like after Thanksgiving. Again, I'm sending these relative spreadsheets out every 3 to 4 weeks. That come by Thanksgiving, when we get back, I will freeze those grades, and I will then record per assignment what the grade should be. So in your case, Jammer, if I gave you a B for one of the written assignments and you made corrections, which I really want you to do so, and communicate with me your thoughts, your ideas, I would bump you up, say, if it warranted, to a B plus or A. So that's why I'm not recording them directly, but I'm sending out these spreadsheets. So at the end of the third week in September, I will send out individual spreadsheets to each student. Does that make sense to everyone? The reason why I'm doing it, giving you a chance to go back and recorrect or add greater value or, more pertinent granularity. Okay, great. Okay, well, I have nothing further to share. I'm happy that everyone joined tonight. Please call me again. Any issues, questions, comments, any help, I'm here for you guys. And please, project teams 2 through 6, send your information to me, and I will then update the specific slides pertaining to your specific team. This is for the status meetings. So with that, I want to say good night to everyone. And again, thank you for all your hard work.
You are currently the only person in this conference.